Hello, I am Vistar, and today we're going to learn how to make animation for Skyrim. If you already looked for tutorials before, you probably stumbled across situations like: to make animations, you need to download this software, do this thing, make your animation, and then export your animation to Skyrim. Okay, but how do I make the animation? Well, to make the animation, you need to download this software, do this thing, make your animation, and then export the animation to Skyrim. Thanks, I guess. So, as you understood, this tutorial is centered about the actual making of the animation, neither the software nor the workflow. I'm no expert at animating at all, but I made a few decent animations, so maybe you'll be able to learn at least a little from me. The currently displayed animations were made by myself. They're pretty okay, I think. We'll see later how to improve them. A little info before starting, so the final result took me roughly an hour to make. It won't be wonderful, but most probably fine enough, and to be fair, it's better than some of the animations I saw on the Nexus. Also, I made purposely mistakes I wouldn't do normally, just to teach, so you won't do the same. But keep in mind, it will probably take me more time to record the audio I'm making right now and make the editing of the video than to make the animation itself. So for something you may even be able to use in-game, I think it's fine enough. So let's start. So here we are on Blender with the character T-posing, and if you expand the menu, you'll be able to see that we're on the default pose. This is the name of the animation. We're going to make a 1HM attack rate animation. This is the animation of the first swing you do when you use a one-handed weapon. The first step in making an animation is the starting pose. Thanks to TKTK, we already got the 1HM pose done, so congrats to him and a huge thanks for taking the time to remake the idle animations in Blender. On the left is the name of all the bones used in the rig. I'm not going to use them all, so what I'm gonna do is go on the panel, press B, draw a rectangle with your mouse and select all the useless bones. When you're done, use your mouse right click and select group channels. Don't worry, it won't delete the bones. Usually I'll just leave the pelvis movement, the controller base, the head, the NPC spines, the IK for the hand, the elbow, the forearm, and the controller for the feet and the knee. You'll see that I let the TGT forearm enabled. This was a mistake. I saw that afterward when I actually started making the animation. After that, you can reorganize a little the bones to have, let's say, fit together, the hand together, so it doesn't really matter. What I usually do afterward is enable the gizmo. I want them enabled for the rotation and the movement and the coordinate set as global, but it's optional, just as you wish. So now we're going to move the bones with the gizmo by selecting the arrow, and if you select the circles, you can rotate the bone around the axis. Now I'm going to select the forearm, and you can see that if I press G, I can move it freely. After the start pose, we want the end pose. It will just be the same, so what I'm gonna do is select all the bones I want copied, here, all the bones, and just copy paste them at the frame 80. I choose the frame 80 because I'm making animation for SkySA, which is my own mod, and I know that's the timing I want. So if you want to replace a certain animation, you need the number of frames to match the length of the animations you want to replace. So here I got my start pose, my end pose, and I'm gonna add a mid pose. So I move the bone, I'm going to add the keyframe, and now you can see that a keyframe appeared on the graph in the middle at the frame 41. Now I want to play it, but as you can see, nothing happened, so the timeline just jumped from 0 to 1. So I'm gonna change the end frame to 80. And now I'm going to play it, and congrats, we just made the worst possible jumping animation. So okay, we got the very basis of animating, but movement is really jagged, as you can see. That's because the default setting for the frame rate is 30. What we're going to do is change it to 60. So we're going to the panel on the bottom right, and we're going to change the frame rate. Now this is a lot smoother, but also the animation goes twice as fast. So we're going on the left panel again, go to the frame 0, select all the keyframes and press S. Now we can adjust with the mouse for the timing we want. There, the 40 frames animation at 30 FPS goes as fast as the 80 frames animation at 60 FPS. Now that it's done, we can finally start animating. So I want a first pose at the frame 12. As you can see, there's a little bug. The right forearm can extend. The left forearm can't extend, and the arms on the female ring can't extend either. But I don't know how to ring, so I can correct that. We're gonna have to live with it. So as you can see, making animation isn't rocket science. Thanks to the work of the other modders and the tools they provide, it's just pretty intuitive and easy to do. Once you're happy with your pose, you can move to the next pose. And the pose disappeared. So what happened is I forgot to save the keyframe. Well, I didn't forget, I did it on purpose, but let's say I forgot. So no problem, Blender remember the pose, so you just need to Ctrl Z. Now the pose is back, so you just need to select all the bones you modified and save the keyframe for the selected bones. So now we have our first in-between pose. The animation I want requires a pose at frame 45 and the feet to stay still from frame 30 to 45. I'm going to cut that because really it's not interesting at all. Maybe if you ask me, I'll upload the raw video. So honestly, it's just boring to watch. What you're seeing is the pose at the frame 45, which is the end of the attack. So we got 4 poses: the start pose, the first in-between pose to prepare the attack, the end of the attack pose, and the last pose, which is the character going back to idle. Now I'm going to play that. And now not only did we make the worst jumping animation, we also made the worst attack animation. But maybe, just maybe, it looks better in game, so we're going to click on the middle bottom right panel on the run script button, which will export the animation. So now go back to where your rig is located and go in the convert folder. You'll be able to see that the animation is called 1HM pose. That's because the name of the animation in Blender is 1HM pose. We want it to be 1HM attack right. Going to rename it. After that, we're just going to export it again. And surprise surprise, the bad animation in Blender is also bad in Skyrim. So back to Blender, I'm just going to accentuate a little more on the emphasis of the poses. It's again really not interesting, just a side-by-side comparison. So here's the old and now the new commit pose. Here's the old and now the new end of the attack pose. And here it is in game, slowed by 2 times to display all the problems. Here for example the feet doesn't match the movement, but it's already a lot better. But yeah, back to Blender. And now the third iteration of the animation gives us something like this. So at this point I'm only at 30 minutes of recording, considering I purposely made mistakes and included a part of my workflow inside, and I literally cut all the loadings and the file copying, everything. Honestly, I think it's pretty awesome to get something that's not... I won't use it in game, okay? But like we're getting close to it. So look, at full speed, I've honestly seen animation released on the Nexus that were way worse than that, honestly. So just look at the feet movements. So before continuing, I have something I deem important to say about how to make an animation smooth. You can make animations frame by frame, but if I choose to make a start pose, an end pose, and in-between pose, it's because, from what I saw, Blender will fill in the gap and make an animation in a way that's always smoother than what you'll be able to do, even if you work frame by frame. Okay? Maybe it's just me, because clearly I'm not that good at animating, so... But, to show you how it works, how it will probably works, at least for beginners like me. Here's the footage from SkySA 1.0, which was the first set of animations I ever made, and now the footage from SkySA 1.1. I think in the 1.0 version I used something like 4-5 keyframes just for the arm movements, and just look. And in the 1.1 version there was only one, but if you see, it's not perfectly smooth. The animation is a little jagged because even with only one middle keyframe, the keyframe needs to be perfectly aligned, which is something almost impossible to do. And fun fact, for the video I tried to make the movements with all the keyframe as jagged as possible, just to show you, and well, it seems that when I try to make things jagged, it looks smooth, and when I try to make things smooth, it looks jagged. So maybe I'm just bad at animating, so who knows.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, let's remove all the keyframes now. And as you can see, it doesn't look like an attack anymore. The arm needs to be stretched. So how to do that without keyframes? Well, we're going to use the graph editor. After having selected the bone you want, you'd have multiple curves appearing. And those curves are what define the trajectory of the bone. The keyframe are the black spots you can see, and if you click on the keyframe, you'd have the handles appearing. The handles, you can modify their length, their pitch, to change the trajectory of the bone. Depending on the bone you want to modify, you'd want to change either the rotation or the location, maybe both for some specific bones, but here I just want to change the location, so I'm going to do that, and I have to play with the curves of the 3-axis, so I'll cut it again. So here's the final result, and now it looks like an attack again. So for the following, I'm going to tweak all the other bones and all the other curves to have something more natural, more irregular. So that's the problem with Blender filling the gaps. It's so smooth, it's unnatural. You want a bit of the bone not moving perfectly all at the same time and arriving on the same time. So here's the final result. And now all the animations back to back, starting from the first and ending by this one. You may prefer the third over the fourth one. Doesn't really matter, to be honest. So I'll play a clip from the last one in a fight with bandits. Just for the info, it's 18 right now where I live, and I started the editing at 15, so just the editing of the video literally took 3 times more work than the actual animation. So honestly, for this little investment, I think it's more than honest, to be fair. If I can do that, just imagine what you can do with a bit more time. So now you know almost everything I know. There's just one last thing I think you know about before leaving. If you're on the graph and you click on the view and enable the sidebar, after having chosen the bone, you can enable modifiers. So there are multiple modifiers that allow you to generate sine curves. Sine curves, for example, are pretty useful if you want some perfect movements. But I'll just show you an example with the noise modifier for something I have that's coming up. I don't know when, but that's coming up. So the noise, as stated, just add noise. So it makes the character, or at least the bone, shake. That just looks so. Why would you want your bones to shake? It looks like the most useless features you could ever find. Well, now just suppose you're someone who has absolutely no imagination, but you know how to make mods. So you go to the Nexus and stumble across Shiver Alpha. This mod consists only of an idle animation, so if integrated with Frostfall, you could play the idle only when you're cold. Now just imagine you're still that person without imagination, but you know how to make mods. and you're totally going to steal that concept at some point. And combining tool mode is something I already did with Combat Fatigue and Vigor or Wildcat, so don't worry, I know how to, I just don't know when. As much as I like the concept, I didn't like the animation itself, so I redid it again by my own, and here it is. Thanks to the noise modifier, all I had to do was make the start animation, copy paste it to the end animation, and add the modifier. Look, so it took me 5 minutes. So just here, this is just the same thing with a little movement of bones, and it's not finished. So the forward walk is bad at the moment. The right walk, okay, and the left walk is just the right walk, but inverted. It takes 5 seconds to do. It may be improved before release, for sure. And even if it's badly done, now you know how to make animations, so yeah, I should be able to correct my mistake, and I hope, at least. So, before ending the video, let's not forget, what is boring? Skyrim? Skyrim. Let's make it another game.